Had anyone suggested that a spirited junior would so boldly flirt with me, utterly indifferent to my position as head of HR, I would have dismissed it with a laugh of disbelief. Part 1. First Impressions. The polished chrome and glass elevator. Doors slid apart with a hushed sigh, revealing the still, compressed atmosphere of the executive floor. Daisy Jones inhaled deeply, steadying herself as the faint scent of costly lemon polish and ambition filled her chest. This was day 1, her long-awaited break. Sterling and Cross was a towering giant, and she, a small but resolute spark, had managed to step into its beating heart. Clutching her sleek new leather portfolio tightly against her chest, she held it like a shield against the heavy daunting. Quiet. Her dress, a vibrant sunflower yellow with a flirty, swishy skirt, felt like a declaration of war against the sea of navy, black and gray that flowed through the wide carpeted hallway. She belonged here. She was sunshine in this place. Needed all the light it could get. Her mission, deliver her signed onboarding documents to human resources. Room 801. She found the door, its plaque polished to a mirror shine, and pushed it open. The HR reception was a study in cool minimalism. Pale gray walls, a single piece of abstract art, and a receptionist whose smile was as practiced and polite as it was utterly devoid of warmth. Daisy handed over her name, was given a visitor's badge, and instructed to take a seat until Miss Shaw was available. Miss Shaw, the receptionist had said, the name dropping from her lips like a piece of ice. Daisy sat primly on the edge of a sleek, uncomfortable sofa, her eyes tracing the lines of the room. They snagged on a door slightly ajar down the hall, the one marked Isha, Director of Human Resources. She could just make out the corner of a vast obsidian desk, and then the door swung open fully. Time didn't just slow, it crystallized. The woman who emerged was a vision of severe, breathtaking elegance. She was tall, willowy, and moved with a predatory grace that spoke of absolute authority. A sharp-tailored blazer in deepest charcoal hugged a narrow waist and sharp shoulders, and a pencil skirt of the same fabric ended precisely at her knees, showcasing legs that seemed to go on for miles before disappearing into lethally pointed stilettos. Daisy's gaze traveled upward, past the sharp line of her jaw, and locked onto her face. She was stunning in the way a shard of ice is stunning, beautiful, sharp, and capable of drawing blood. Dark, impeccably styled brunette hair was swept back into a low, severe shiny. Not a single strand dared to fall out of place, and her eyes, they were the color of a winter storm, a piercing, cool gray that seemed to see everything and approve of nothing. This was Evelyn Shaw. The name suddenly made perfect sense. Miss Shaw was speaking tersely to her assistant, her voice a low, crisp alto that carried no warmth, only clear, unambiguous instruction. Daisy felt her own breath hitch. She'd never seen anyone so intimidating, so utterly and completely in command of their space. She was a queen, and this was her frozen kingdom. As if sensing the weight of a stare, Evelyn Shaw's head turned. Those storm-cloud eyes swept across the reception area and landed directly on Daisy. The world shrank to that single point of contact. Daisy's brain short-circuited. Every rehearsed professional greeting, every confident smile evaporated under that arctic gaze. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, traitorous drum. She felt her fingers turn to clumsy, uncooperative sausages. The portfolio, her shield slipped. It was a slow-motion catastrophe. The clasp gave way in a waterfall of important documents. Her signed-off a letter, her I-9 form, her emergency contacts, fluted out, scattering across the immaculate gray carpet. Like confetti at a deeply inappropriate party. A hot wave of humiliation crashed over Daisy. Perfect. Just perfect. She dropped to her knees with a mortified gasp, scrambling to gather the pages before they could be trampled by those terrifying heels. To her utter astonishment, the heels stopped beside her. The air grew colder, charged with a presence that was both terrifying and magnetic. Daisy looked up. Evelyn Shaw was standing over her, a statue of impatience carved from ice. Without a word and with a sigh that could have frostbit in the air, she elegantly knelt. New hires, the woman muttered, the words not so much spoken as shaved from ice. It wasn't a question. Daisy Jones, Daisy squeaked, her voice an octave too high. I'm so sorry. I can read, Shaw interrupted, her tone implying that Daisy's ability to speak was both surprising and mildly irritating. She efficiently gathered a stack of papers, her movements brisk and economical. Their hands reached for the same page at the same time. Daisy's warm and slightly trembling, Evelyn's pale and steady. Daisy's fingers brushed against the back of Evelyn's hand. The contact was electric. A jolt, sharp and startling, shot up Daisy's arm. But it was the texture that made her pause, that made her bold, flustered heart override her common sense. Evelyn Shaw's skin was impossibly devastatingly soft like coal. Silk over steel, it was the most unexpected thing about her. Before she could stop herself, before the fear could refreeze her tongue, Daisy's natural bubbling impulsivity took over. She didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she let her fingertips linger for a heartbeat too long, her honey brown eyes wide with genuine wonder. Wow, she breathed, the word escaping in a soft, awed whisper. Evelyn Shaw froze, her own hand pausing. Mid-reach. Her gray eyes flicked up, narrow and dangerous, a silent question burning in their depths. Daisy met that glacial stare, a mischievous, flustered smile playing on her lips. She was either about to be fired or launched into the sun. But the curiosity was too much. Your hand, Daisy said, her voice regaining a sliver of its usual boldness. It's so soft. Evelyn's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together in a scowl so potent it could curdle milk. Daisy's smile widened into a full impish grin. She leaned in just a fraction, as if sharing a delicious secret. I just have to know, she teased, her voice dropping to a playful, intimate murmur. Does that mean your heart is soft? To Miss Shaw, for a fraction of a second, something unidentifiable flickered in those stormy eyes. Shock? Disbelief? Something else entirely. It was gone so fast. Daisy wondered if she'd imagined it. Evelyn Shaw snatched her hand back as if she'd been branded. She thrust the gathered papers at Daisy, her posture ramrod straight, her expression now a mask of pure, unadulterated frost. My heart, Miss Jones, she said, her voice dripping with such venomous precision that each word felt like a tiny icicle hitting the skin, is none of your business. And if you wish for yours to continue beating in this building, I suggest you focus your talents on something other than amateur palistry. She rose to her full, intimidating height in one fluid motion, looking down at Daisy, still kneeling on the floor. She didn't just walk away. She turned and strode out of the reception area, her heels striking the tile like gunshots, leaving a trail of Arctic air and utterly, completely smitten new employee in her wake. Daisy remained on her knees, clutching the messy stack of papers. To her chest. Her cheeks were flushed, her pulse was racing, and a slow, dazed smile was spreading across her face. Wow! The Ice Queen was even more magnificent up close. And Daisy Jones had never been more curious about anything in her entire life. She was going to find out what or who had put that frost in those gorgeous gray eyes, and she was going to melt it. Part 2, rumors about the ruthless HR. The encounter in the HR reception area played on a continuous flustering loop in Daisy's mind for the rest of the morning. The sharp cut of Evelyn Shaw's jawline, the way her stormy eyes had widened just for a microsecond at the touch of her hand, the delicious chill of her dismissal. It was more thrilling than any corporate training video. Settled at her new desk in the marketing department, a sleek, modern workspace that felt both empowering and anonymous, Daisy found it impossible to focus on the onboarding modules glowing on her screen. All she could see was the Ice Queen's face. She needed data. She needed intelligence. And the best source of corporate intelligence wasn't in the employee handbook. It was at the coffee machine. During the mid-morning lull, Daisy made her move. She approached a small cluster of colleagues who seemed to be taking a breather, their expressions a familiar mix of caffeine craving and existential dread. Hi there, Daisy chirped, her sunflower yellow dress acting like a beacon. I'm Daisy, the new hire, still trying to find my way around. Who do I talk to about getting a plant for my desk? It feels a little sterile. A woman named Anna, who had a kind face and tired eyes, offered a small smile. You'd have to put in a request with facilities. But good luck. Ms. Shaw has a policy against excessive personalization of workspaces. She says it's unprofessional. Daisy's interest was immediately piqued. Perfect. Miss Shaw. Is that the stunningly gorgeous but slightly terrifying woman from HR? The small group exchanged a look, a silent communal shudder. It was all the confirmation Daisy needed. Oh, you've met her then? Said a guy named Ryan, lowering his voice as if the walls themselves had ears. Consider yourself initiated. That's Evelyn Shaw, director of HR, also known as the Ice Queen. Anna finished, her voice dropping to a mere whisper. She glanced nervously down the hall toward the elevator banks, as if saying the name aloud might summon her. Daisy leaned in, her honey brown eyes wide with feigned, naive curiosity. The Ice Queen? That's a bit dramatic, isn't it? She just seemed serious. Ryan let out a short, humorless laugh. Serious as a kitten. Shaw is a saber-toothed tiger. Rumor has it she once made a senior VP cry during a performance review. Not yell, not threaten. She just dismantled his entire 5-year strategy with 3 quiet questions. He asked for a transfer the next week. She's ruthless, Anna added, stirring her coffee. With a grim intensity. The handbook isn't a guideline to her. It's scripture, and she's its high priestess. I saw her fire a guy on the spot once for fudging his timesheet by 15 minutes. 15 minutes. He was packing his family photos while the rest of us tried to remember how to breathe. Daisy listened, her head tilted. The warnings were meant to scare her, to make her tread carefully. Instead, they painted a picture of a woman of immense power and uncheckable principle. It was fascinating. But surely someone that high up has a boss, Daisy pressed. The CEO, doesn't he ever, rein her in? This time the entire group laughed, a soft, incredulous sound. Mr. Vance, Ryan said, shaking his head. He's terrified of her. I'm not kidding. The story goes that a few years back, he tried to push through a nepotism hire for his nephew. Shaw scheduled a meeting with him, and 10 minutes later, Vance was the one walking out of her office looking like he'd been sent to the principal. The nephew wasn't hired. The board loves her, though, another colleague piped up. She saved the millions in potential lawsuits. She's brutally, impeccably fair, but fair doesn't mean nice. Anna nodded in agreement. I've been here 5 years. I have never, not once, seen her laugh. I'm not sure she can. I think her face might crack. The picture they painted was of a flawless, emotionless automaton, a corporate Valkyrie who harvested souls for fun and stored them in her filing cabinet. They spoke of her with a mixture of fear, respect, and a deep superstitious awe. Instead of the intended effect, a cold dread seeping into her bones, Daisy felt a warm, thrilling spark of determination ignite in her chest. This wasn't a deterrent. It was a challenge, the ultimate challenge. A woman who had never been seen laughing. A woman who intimidated CEOs and brought VPs to their knees. A woman whose heart was supposedly as frozen as her demeanor. Daisy Jones, who had once talked a grumpy DMV clerk into giving her a better photo, who could befriend a feral cat, who believed sunshine could warm even the coldest stone, saw not. A monster, but a fortress, and every fortress had a gate. Every lock had a key. She just had to find it. A slow, mischievous smile spread across Daisy's face, utterly out of place amidst the group's somber expressions. She mused, tapping her chin thoughtfully. I think that's the most interesting thing I've heard all day. Anna looked at her as if she'd grown a second head. Interesting? It's horrifying. My advice, do your job. Stay out of her way. And if you ever get summoned to her office, pray. But Daisy was no longer listening. Her mind was already racing, formulating plans, drafting ridiculous pickup lines, and imagining the faintest blush on those perfectly pale cheeks. The others saw an impenetrable glacier. Daisy saw the world's most fascinating puzzle wrapped in a tailored blazer and killer heels. Thanks for the tip, Daisy said, her voice bubbling with a renewed energy that confused her new colleagues. She gave them a brilliant, sunny smile. I think I'm really going to like it here. She turned and walked back to her sterile, impersonal desk. her step now having a definite bounce to it. The fear in their voices hadn't intimidated her. It had intrigued her. It had given her a mission. Crack the grumpy shell. Find the soft heart dot, make the ice queen laugh. Game on, part 3, daily visits and flirty puzzles. The next morning, at precisely 9:05 a.m., a vision in coral pink appeared in the doorway of the HI reception area. Daisy Jones, holding a single unnecessary form like a talisman, beamed at the assistant, Olivia. Good morning. Just need to drop this off with Miss Shaw. It's a clarification on my beneficiary form. I think I spelled my cat's name wrong. Olivia, who had already been preemptively exhausted by Daisy's mere existence, sighed. You can leave it with me, Jones. I'll ensure it gets to her. Oh, that's so kind, but I just feel better handing it to her personally. You know, accountability. Daisy's smile was blinding, utterly impervious to Olivia's clear desire for her to vanish. Before Olivia could form another barrier, the intercom on her phone buzzed, crackling with a voice that could lower the room's temperature by 10. Olivia, send in the Q3 head count reports the second they are. Is someone out there? Daisy didn't wait. She leaned toward the intercom, her voice sweet as syrup. It's just me, Miss Shaw. Daisy Jones. I have a quick question. A long, heavy silence followed. Olivia winced, preparing for the verbal blast. Instead, what came through was a low, weary sigh that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. 5 minutes, Miss Jones. Daisy practically skipped into the office. Evelyn Shaw did not look up from her monitor. Her focus was absolute, a laser beam of concentration aimed at the spreadsheets glowing on the screen. She was a statue of professionalism, the morning light glinting off the silver pen in her hand. Well, what is it? She said, her voice flat, still not granting Daisy the courtesy of eye contact. Daisy approached the vast obsidian desk, placing her form neatly on the corner. I was wondering, she began, clasping her hands behind her back and rocking on her heels. What's the difference between an HR manager and a puppy? Evelyn's typing stopped. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She slowly, deliberately lifted her gaze. The gray eyes that met Daisy's were full of a promise and imminent violence. I cannot possibly fathom, she deadpanned. The puppy eventually stopped whining. Daisy delivered the line with a triumphant giggle. Evelyn stared. There was no twitch of a lip, no crinkle of the eye, nothing. Just the implacable frozen surface of a deep, dark lake. After a heartbeat that stretched into an eternity, she picked up a pen and made a note on a legal pad. Daisy craned her neck to see. In precise, angry script, it read, formal warning. Unprofessional conduct. Your 5 minutes are up, Evelyn said. Returning her gaze to the screen, a clear and absolute dismissal, Daisy left, her smile never dimming. Day 1, she didn't call security. It became a ritual as reliable as the morning coffee run. Day 2, the excuse was a question about the dental plan's coverage of hypothetical laughter-related injuries. Day 3, she needed to know the company's official stance on workplace. Crushes, presenting it as a genuine ethical inquiry. Day 4, she arrived with 2 coffees. I didn't know how you took it, she said, placing a steaming cup on Evelyn's desk. So I just got you a black dark roast. You seem like a black dark roast kind of woman. Strong, bitter, and gets the job done. Evelyn left the coffee untouched, but it was still there, cooling. When Daisy left, the excuses grew more and more flimsy, the puzzles and pickup lines more outrageous. Why was the HR manager so good at baseball? Because she's great at throwing out rules. If I could rearrange the alphabet, I'd still keep you and I right next to each other. It's just efficient. Filing. Do you have a map? Because I keep getting lost in your eyes. This one earned Daisy a slow, deliberate blink, followed by Evelyn picking up the phone and coldly asking security if they were aware someone was wandering the executive floors unsupervised. Yet she never explicitly banned Daisy from her office. The grumbling became the soundtrack to Daisy's visits. Evelyn would swear under her breath the moment the door opened, a soft, vicious litany of curses. Hell's bells, not you. For the love of what now? I will have her transferred to the basement mailroom. She took to blaming Olivia with a theatrical, Exasperation that was, for her, borderline hysterical. Olivia. She'd snap into the intercom after Daisy had departed, leaving the ghost of her perfume and a terrible riddle in the air. My door is not a revolving door for insufferable new hires. What did I tell you about screening my appointments? Olivia, who had long since moved from exasperation to a kind of morbid fascination, would simply reply, "You said no one. Unless it's a firing, Miss Shaw. She's not a firing yet." But the most telling change was one only Evelyn Shaw could perceive. She found her mornings developing a new rhythm. The grim review of overnight emails, the first bitter sip of coffee, the tense preparation for the day's battles, and then the anticipation, a faint, unwelcome, an utterly infuriating flicker of curiosity around 9:05 a.m. What ridiculousness would she bring today? One morning, when Daisy was 5 minutes late due to a fire drill, Evelyn had caught herself staring at the door, her concentration broken. She'd scowled at her own weakness, violently stamping out the feeling, but it was there. She'd never admit it, not even under threat of torture, but she'd started to enjoy it. The sheer brazen audacity was a splash of garish color on her gray canvas of a world. The puns were terrible. The pickup lines were cringeworthy, but they were clever. They required a certain quickness of mind she couldn't help but respect. Even as she despised their source, she began keeping a secret mental tally. The former warning list on her legal pad was a performance, a shield. The real list was in her head. Cat joke, derivative, alphabet line, mildly inventive, baseball analogy, almost witty. One Tuesday, Daisy arrived empty-handed. No form today. Evelyn asked, her tone bored before she could stop herself. It was the first time she'd initiated the conversation. Daisy's eyes lit up as if she'd been given a prize. Nope. Just wanted to see your face. It's my daily dose of serious. Keeps me grounded. Evelyn felt a strange, almost imperceptible tug at the very corner of her mouth. She crushed it instantly, covering the slip with a ferocious scowl. "You're a menace, Miss Jones. A productivity black hole. I prefer morning delight." Daisy winked. "See you tomorrow, Miss Shaw. Try to smile before I get here. It'll make the contrast less shocking." The door closed. The office was silent again, colder and emptier than it had been just 30 seconds before. Evelyn Shaw sat back in her chair, the leather sighing under her weight. She stared at the door, a faint, unfamiliar warmth in her cheeks. She was the feared director of HR, the woman who could silence a boardroom with a glance, and she was secretly, desperately, looking forward to 9:05 a.m., Part 4, Confession of Distraction. The morning ritual had evolved. It was no longer just about the terrible jokes or the flimsy excuses. It was a dance, a daily skirmish and a war. Evelyn Shaw was terrified to realize she was losing. Daisy's 9:05 a.m. appearances had become the axis around which Evelyn's morning rotated, a fact she acknowledged only in the deepest, most secret chambers of her mind, and only with profound self-loathing. This particular morning, the dance was about to become an earthquake. Evelyn was preparing for it. She'd caught herself at 9:04, a dot M, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle from her blazer and glancing toward the door. She'd scowled and viciously attacked her keyboard, typing with unnecessary force. Right on schedule, the door swung open, but the energy was all wrong. Daisy usually entered like a sunbeam, all light and playful energy. Today, she stormed in. Her usual sunny demeanor was clouded over with a dramatic, frantic urgency. Her honey brown eyes were wide, not with mischief, but with something that looked remarkably like genuine distress. She didn't pause at the desk. She marched to the obsidian desk, planting her hands on its cool surface. Her breath came in an agitated rush. Evelyn looked up, her prepared scowl derailed by the unexpected performance. Her usual barb died on her lips. "Miss Shaw," Daisy began, her voice strained, lacking its usual melody. "We have a serious problem." A flicker of professional concern cut through Evelyn's irritation. Her HR instincts took over. "What is it?" she asked sharply. "Sit. Explain. Has someone done something?" Daisy remained standing, shaking her head in profound frustration. Yes, it's becoming untenable. Evelyn's mind raced. She reached for a pen. A colleague, a superior, you're protected. Report it. It's not like that, Daisy insisted, running a hand through her hair. It's a personal distraction, but it's impacting my work severely. Evelyn's concern curdled into impatience. Miss Jones, that is a matter of self-discipline, not a company. But it is a company issue. Daisy interrupted, her voice rising with real passion. The distraction is in this building. It's constant. It's all I can think about. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. A cold dread pulled in her stomach. What are you talking about? Daisy took a steadying breath, her distress melting into a blazing intensity. It's you. The two words landed like a detonation. Evelyn froze. The pen clattered onto the desk. Her mind refused to process it. I beg your pardon? She choked out, a hot flush creeping up her neck. You, Daisy repeated, her voice now a low, intimate murmur. All traces of the frantic employee were gone, replaced by devastating boldness. A wicked smirk played on her lips. You are the distraction, Evelyn. The use of her first name was a calculated shock. Evelyn could only stare, her heart hammering traitorously. Daisy leaned closer, her whisper vibrating between them. I sit at my desk and I can't focus. All I can think about. Her eyes dropped to Evelyn's hands, then slowly traced a path back to her lips. Evelyn's breath hitched. All I can think about, Daisy continued, is what it felt like to touch your hand, how soft it was. I wonder if the rest of you is that soft. A half gasp escaped Evelyn. Her cheeks were on fire. I think about what it would be like to kiss you, right here. I wonder if you'd make a sound. I wonder if you'd bite. Evelyn's hand flew to her throat in a useless gesture of defense. Her mind was a void. And sometimes, Daisy whispered, her gaze smoky and daring, my thoughts get even more inappropriate. She paused, letting the silence thicken. I think about what's under this desk. Her eyes flicked down to the obsidian barrier, then back up, holding Evelyn's horrified, mesmerized gaze. I think about slipping under it and what I might do to you there where no one could see. The image exploded in Evelyn's mind. A white-hot bolt of desire, fiercely suppressed for years, lanced through her, followed by scorching humiliation. She was scandalized, mortified, aroused. Her lips were parted, her breathing shallow. The flush was visible in her chest. She gripped the edge of her desk, her knuckles white. She was utterly undone. Daisy straightened up, serene and triumphant. She looked at the speechless, disheveled woman as if she were the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. So, you see, Daisy said, her voice light and airy, it's a real productivity issue. You might want to address that. She gave a slow, deliberate wink, turned, and walked out, closing the door softly behind her. The silence was louder than any scream. Evelyn Shaw did not move. She sat statue still in the wreckage of her composure. The air hummed with the echo of Daisy's words. The room felt oppressively hot. Her skin tingled. She was the feared director of HR, the Ice Queen, and a bubbly blonde in a yellow dress had just set her entire world on fire, firing her on the spot for insubordination. Both options felt equally likely, equally terrifying. The night stretched on, an eternity of self-recrimination and illicit fantasy. The Ice Queen was melting from the inside out, and there was no one to blame but a blonde hurricane in a sunflower dress. When the first gray light of dawn finally crept around the edges of her blackout curtains, Evelyn Shaw had not slept a wink. She was lying on her back, staring at the ceiling, her eyes wide and haunted. The war inside her was over. The desire had won. It hadn't conquered gracefully. It had laid waste to everything in its path. She felt raw, exposed, and for the first time in a very, very long time, utterly and completely alive. She had to do something. She couldn't exist in this state of suspended animation. The tension was unbearable. The distraction was absolute. As the city began to wake up below her, Evelyn Shaw came to a terrifying, exhilarating conclusion. She had to end this one way or another. Part 6, Permission from the Boss. The dawn did not bring clarity. It brought a sharper, more frantic edge to Evelyn's desperation. The night had been a torturous cycle of feverish fantasy and cold, sobering reality. She was a woman unnerved, her legendary composure shattered into 1,000 glittering, anxious pieces. She dressed for war, her hands uncharacteristically clumsy. She fumbled with the buttons of her stark white blouse, her fingers trembling. She chose her most intimidating outfit, a severe black blazer with sharp, almost militaristic shoulders and a matching pencil skirt. Armor. She was putting on her armor, but for the first time it felt like a costume, a flimsy disguise for the chaotic, yearning mess writhing beneath. She arrived at the office an hour early, the cavernous space silent and shadowed. She couldn't go to her own office. The very thought of sitting at that desk where those words had been spoken made her skin prickle with a fresh wave of heat. Instead, she paced the empty hallway outside the CEO suite, her stilettos making sharp, frantic clicks on the polished floor that echoed in the profound silence. Her mind was a battleground. This is professional suicide. I can't focus on a single thing. She's a subordinate. It's a gross abuse of power. I wonder what her hair smells like. I will fire her. I will fire her the moment she walks in. What if she says no? That last thought brought her up short, a cold dread washing over her. The possibility of rejection had not even occurred to her. She was Evelyn Shaw. People didn't reject her. They obeyed her or they were removed. But Daisy Jones operated on a different frequency entirely. She was the one variable Evelyn's personal algorithms could not predict. At 8:58 a.m., 2 minutes before Mr. Vance's official start time, she saw his assistant arrive. Evelyn didn't wait for a greeting. Is he in? She demanded, her voice coming out as a ragged croak. The assistant, a young man named Kevin, jumped at her sudden appearance. Miss Shaw, good morning. He just arrived, but I can't wait. Evelyn snapped. And without another word, she strode to the heavy mahogany door and pushed it open. Robert Vance, CEO of Sterling & Cross, was midway through a sip of his morning coffee, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose as he scrolled through pre-market numbers on his monitor. He looked up, startled by the sudden intrusion. Evelyn, his greeting died in his throat as he took her in. The Evelyn Shaw who stood before him was not the one he knew. This woman was pale, her usually impeccable makeup unable to conceal the shadows under her eyes. A single fine strand of dark hair had escaped her chignon. Most alarming of all was her expression. It wasn't its usual mask of cold disdain. It was wild, agitated. Her gray eyes were wide, almost feverish, and she was breathing as if she'd run a sprint. Evelyn, what's happened? He asked, his voice shifting from surprise to genuine concern. He'd seen this look before a corporate takeover or a major lawsuit. Is it the merger legal? Talk to me. Evelyn opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. She closed it, swallowed hard, and tried again. This was it. The point of no return. She gripped the back of the visitor's chair in front of his desk, her knuckles white. I need your permission, she blurted out, the words awkward and too loud. In the quiet, opulent room, Vance's eyebrows shot up. Evelyn Shaw did not ask for permission. She demanded compliance. My permission for what? To fire someone. Evelyn, you have full autonomy in HR. You don't need to ask me to. No, she interrupted, the word bursting from her. She took a shaky breath, forcing herself to speak more slowly, to articulate the most humiliating sentence of her professional life. Not to fire, the opposite. Robert Vance slowly removed his reading glasses, placing them on the desk with deliberate care. He was utterly lost. The opposite of firing someone is hiring someone. And you certainly don't need my permission for that unless it's a sweet position, which it isn't because you'd be discussing it with the board, not to date someone. The words exploded from her, a desperate, mortified confession. The silence that followed was absolute, thick with disbelief. Robert Vance stared. He blinked once, twice. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then a strange choke sound escaped him. It was a precursor to a laugh ruthlessly suppressed by decades of boardroom decorum. His face began to turn red with the effort of holding it in. You, he finally managed. His voice strained. You want my permission to date someone? Evelyn stood ramrod straight, her cheeks burning with a humiliation so profound she felt dizzy. She nodded once, a sharp jerky motion. Yes, another beat of stunned silence. Then a snort, then a full-bodied wheezing laugh broke free. Robert Vance threw his head back and roared. It was a deep booming sound of pure, unadulterated delight. He laughed until tears gathered in the corners of his eyes, wiping them away with his thumb. Oh, Evelyn, he gasped, trying to catch his breath. By all means, date whoever you want. For God's sake, you're a grown woman. You don't need my... He stopped, a new thought striking him. His laughter subsided into a wide, incredulous grin. Wait, who is so terrifyingly by the book that she would actually ask a CEO's permission for a date? And who on God's green earth could have possibly reduced you to this? He gestured vaguely at her disheveled, frantic state. Evelyn's jaw was so tight it ached. She looked at a point on the wall just past his head, refusing to meet his gleeful eyes. Daisy Jones, she ground out. In marketing. The name meant nothing to him. He shook his head, still grinning. And why do you need to date her? Some strategic alliance I'm unaware of? Evelyn's eyes snapped to his, blazing. Because she won't stop bothering me, she cried, the admission raw. She comes into my office every day with her riddles and her sunshine and her insane propositions. I can't focus. I can't work. I can't sleep. She's a menace. The only way to get her to stop is to go on a date with her. Vance leaned back, steepling his fingers. So your plan to stop her from distracting you is to give her your undivided attention over dinner. Flawless logic. Evelyn flushed. It will formalize the boundaries. Get it out of our systems. Then we can return to a professional relationship. Robert Vance looked at her with fond disbelief. Evelyn, you've terrified VPs and stared down the board. And now a bubbly blonde from marketing has you storming into my office, frazzled and begging for a date permit? He chuckled. It's about time someone melted that frozen heart. Of course you have my permission, my blessing. Relief washed over her, so potent it felt like a physical blow. The mission was accomplished, bringing a fresh wave of terrifying reality. She had to actually do it now. Thank you, she mumbled, turning to leave. Evelyn, Vance called out. She paused, hand on the doorknob. Try to have fun, he said, a smirk in his voice. And let the poor girl live. She's clearly a miracle worker. Evelyn fled, his laughter echoing in her ears. She felt mortified and exposed, but she had a destination. The permission was secured. Now she had to face the sunshine.